Hi friends, welcome to or back to my channel. My name is Chrissy and this is where I talk about tarot, journaling, all of the things that I am currently working with to deepen my connection to myself and deepen my connection to source through myself. So, welcome. I hope that from my experience, from the things that I share, you can be curious, inspired to follow your own path of self-curiosity. I want to acknowledge first of all that I'm really thirsty, and today I am drinking out of a West Sixth, a local brewery to us, out of a West Sixth Christmas ale glass. I just want to acknowledge it is July and I'm drinking out of a Christmas cup. And this is an accident because I think in one of my previous videos, I don't know if I posted it or not. I may not have shared it, but because it got kind of, I don't remember which video it was, but there was a video recently where I was drinking out of a McDonald's Christmas cup from the 80s. So I guess maybe we have a collection of Christmas glasses that I was not aware of that stay in all year. Anyway, welcome. It's July. So today what I'm going to talk about is my favorites, my news and my favorites from June, and then what I have planned as we go into July. And I'm just gonna hop right in. I'm gonna start with favorites from June that I already had in my collection. The first is the Carnival at the End of the World. This is a tarot deck that I absolutely love. And I think, I know I've made the comment before, some of you may have heard me, that I initially bought this deck to like convince my husband to read tarot. Like I thought if there's going to be a deck that my husband's going to be like, yes, I want to read with that, it's going to be this one. But you know, I haven't given it to him. I've kind of held on to it. I really enjoy, the guidebook is fantastic. Let me just reach over here and get it. It's on my shelf. The guidebook comes separately. It doesn't have, it has just the right amount of write-up for the card. And I love the difference, the way that the writing is shaped. And it's just really, it's just striking. It gives a really fresh, but still very Rider-Waite based way to think about the cards and the imagery. And I really enjoy this deck. So this is Carnival at the End of the World, right? Yes. The fours, the ofs of both of these decks honestly give me pause and hesitation. And this is a wrap that I made for this deck. I had looked at some Harlequin type fabric and I ended up liking the stripes. I like the big top more. The other deck, also from the same creator that I used in May and June, is the Tarot of the Drowning World. This was another deck that I hadn't planned. I hadn't anticipated falling so in love with. And I think a part of the reason, oh my gosh, this deck, part of the reason I love this deck so much is because it doesn't have a big connection to traditional imagery, and that let me find some pips. I'm drawing all majors, and that the minors are very pippish. So this is also requiring me, I drew the Two of Pentacles so many times in the last 2 months. This really is inviting me back to the guidebook, and it is a fantastic guidebook as well. Again, the same sort of setup, really thin, like paperback pages. Reminds me of the super cheap paperbacks that my aunts used to buy. Reminds me a lot of her actually. And with the black and white picture of the card, and then again a little bit of a write-up. a sentence or two, the medicine and the poison for each card. There's a big write-up for each major, but I honestly every time just read the medicine and the poison. It's a really nice, it got really bent in transit. I don't mind. That gives me permission to not be so precious with it myself. I've really enjoyed my work with this deck. I don't necessarily know that I'm ready to put it away. It's gonna stay on my desk, but not in my tarot bag, I think. It's been a really steady partner for me over the last few weeks, more than few weeks. But I am just ready to see what other decks have to offer. So my plan is to put this on the back burner, still on the stove, but on the back burner for the month of July. So a deck that was new to me in June, and I think was the only Oracle deck I used in June, and it's the I'm going to keep it open for any practices for July as well, is the Outgrow Yourself Oracle. And I've really been able to treat this as an oracle because even though it has the tarot associations as well, it follows Thoth, and that is not a system that I know or that I have studied, so I'm really able to let it just be its own thing. Of course, if it's a major that I recognize, I may let some of that knowledge, my own interpretation, seep in, of course. But this has given me some really, really fierce readings. There was a reading I did. So I draw my card of the day every day, and then I typically draw 2 cards with questions that I get while I'm journaling through the card. It's through my primary card, my anchor card. And there was one day last week that I really didn't have any particular questions that came up with my anchor card. So I drew 3 cards out of Carnival of the Drowning, Carnival at the End of the World. And then like if I were inviting those 3 cards to coffee, and then let 3 cards from this deck be the lesson, what those 3 tarot cards were bringing to the table. And it was really creepy. Like I don't remember the specifics, but it was just, I mean, lined up like, oh, of course, that's what the Ace of Swords would say. And of course, that's what Strength would say in relation to my anchor card. And this has been a really solid voice for my tarot. My plan is at some point today, and I intend to record it, unless it gets like way too deep or personal to me, I may not share. But my plan is to do a chakra check-in with the next deck I'm going to show you, and then use this deck as what each chakra, the guidance, the suggestion, the wisdom within each chakra right now. It's the chakra reading that I offer on my website. I just plan on doing it for myself each month. And as you see me read for myself, you get an idea of how I would read for you. So none of those decks were new to me this month. Oh wait, I'm sorry, it was, yes, the Outgrow Yourself was new to me this month. The Tarot for the Drowning World and Tarot at the End, Carnival at the End of the World. I'll eventually get those right. Those 2 were not new. The other, I received 2 other new decks in June. Another one is, this is the Tarot as Color. I saw Meg with this deck of Rose Honey Ritual, and I was like, how can I not have this deck? We're getting a lot of glare because it is not, it's not super glossy, but the reason that I was so drawn to this deck is part of what I feel. I don't feel like I have a lot of connection to tarot other than like the last 3 or 4 years. Like tarot was not a part of my childhood. Cards were, but tarot was not a part of my childhood. It was actually like really not something that would have been okay in the church that I grew up in. So I don't have any sort of historical connection to tarot. And I saw Meg go through this deck, and I was like, okay, I could really get on board with this. And then when I went to look at it and saw that the images are from 1977 and that's the year that I was born, I'm like, okay, yes, this is something that doesn't feel retro, doesn't feel kitschy, doesn't feel like obviously from the 70s. That is something that I can connect with. So I am very excited about this deck. The reading that it gave me today was just, I like it just laid everything inside of me on display today. So my plan for July, at least the first couple weeks, as I hang out with this deck, is for my supportive cards, not my anchor card each day, but my supportive cards, my questioning cards, my clarifiers, to come from this deck. And this is Tarot as color, Tarot, T-A-R-O. Color is spelled the Canadian way, C-O-L-O-U-R. And if you are not new here, this is not going to be a surprise, but if you're new, hold on to your butts as we hear in Jurassic Park. This is my deck. This is a Narrative Alchemy Tarot. This deck came in the mail this month. So this deck, I planned for this deck to be my anchor card from now until as long as it will have me. Each card, it can be used as tarot, as oracle. Each card has a keyword, which has a tarot correspondence, which has a chakra correspondence as well. I am just absolutely blown away anytime I see other people using this. It sold out in a little less than 2 weeks. I mailed the last deck out 2 weeks to the day that they went on sale. I'm going to work the next week or so on getting timing and other things together for a pre-sale to do another order probably toward the end of August if there is enough interest. I love it. It's amazing to hold something that I created in my hands. The other part of this that is super exciting is the guidebook as well. So the deck came with a PDF guidebook, and I also offered a print-on-demand option from Lulu. And I realized that some of you had the paper guidebook before I did, because my copy sat at my local post office for 9 days to be processed. So if you do decide to order from Lulu, don't choose the option that has Mail Innovations as the carrier. Because like I said, mine sat like 4 miles from my house for over a week. Anyway, holding my deck was like something special, but holding a book that I actually physically wrote is its own magic. It's just, I love it. And I wanted it spiral bound so that you all could flip it over. I also wanted it to be a thin lined paper so that you could write in the margins. You can take a highlighter to it. It was really important for me for it not to be any sort of like glossy paper that pens wouldn't work with. I really hope that this is just something, if you choose to buy my deck and to work with the printed guidebook, that you really just make it your own. Like I said, I got this in the mail the last day of June. Like this was a headache getting to me, but it's here. So yeah, some of you all had it before me. I am aware that the cover is a little pixelated. I'm not sure why, because it was the same file that I used for the fabric and the sizing isn't that different. But when I do a second run, I will have a clearer cover, but the guidebook will be the same, the paper guidebook. The other thing is, the one thing I didn't include in the guidebook, and if you all that have the deck want this, let me know. One thing I didn't realize I would want until I was done was a list of the tarot cards, like organized by tarot, and what the keywords were. The guidebook itself is organized by, alphabetical by keyword. So if you have the deck and you want the list of in tarot order what the keywords are, let me know and I'll scan my little handwritten sheet and upload it to the place where you access the guidebook, and you can just washi tape, you know, tip it in like I did here. If I get distracted, it's because like you're right in front of a window and it just started to rain pretty hard, and it was kind of magic. So for June, I used, once it got here, I used my deck, the Narrative Alchemy Tarot, with Tarot with the Drowning World and Carnival at the End of the World, with Outgrow Yourself. I always want to say unknow yourself. Outgrow Yourself as my oracle. Moving forward into July, I'm going to use the Narrative Alchemy Tarot as my anchor, Tarot of Color, Tarot as Color, get it together, Chrissy, as my signifier descriptor cards, and keeping Outgrow Yourself as my oracle deck. As far as practices, I am looking at July as sort of like a fresh start to reclaim my own spiritual practices. I feel like in the process of creating my deck and creating my guidebook, I got really into the intellectual side of tarot and not so much into the how I connect with myself and source through tarot. So I'm not going to go into a lot of what I'm doing. I was going to show you, so for a smidge of accountability, and also just so when I talk about it at the end of the month for like completing July into August, this all won't be completely new to you. I am using my Hobonichi Techo as my scheduler and bullet journal. That is not accurate really, as my schedule and to-do list. So the way that the pages are set up, I can show you today. I can write my to-do list on this side of the page and my schedule on this side. I used this book prior to last week, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times in 2022. So even though it pains me a little bit to start a blank book, a non-blank book in the middle of the year, I'm using what I've got. I'm really trying not to buy new things when I have things that will completely serve that purpose. I am using my Hobonichi cousin that I also bought this year. Again, I think I had used a grand total of 3 pages in this notebook prior to last week. 1, 2, I lied, 2. I January 1st and January 2nd, and then it skips to June 21st. So I'm using the first half of the year, the January, then 3rd through the end of June pages, as with some writing practices, which I'll hopefully show you once I have that down to a little more of a science. And then I am using the current daily page as my tarot journal. And I love how, and somebody had noticed this, was it Sarah Jo maybe? Somebody had actually noticed this on my Instagram, how I'm using it really to mirror my tarot cards. So I have the anchor card here in the middle. What I write on the top is my reflection on that card, and what I write on the bottom is the 2 or 3 cards that I draw in response and my interpretation of those. And I just noticed that I didn't write the tarot's color on today, but I'll do it. I am also using this beautiful decomposition notebook as a place to write what I am calling 3 for me. I had planned on, I've for a while, I've wanted to read through The Artist Way and do morning pages, but not all that many pages in today. I was caught by a couple of things that felt insensitive to me. There was, and I'm not going to go into it, but just rubbed me the wrong way, and made me feel like maybe I didn't belong there. And I don't know that I can commit to a practice that doesn't feel like I belong there. In the same way that there is language that could be used in a yoga class that would make me think, okay, this is not for me and my body and my energy. There were just a few really specific but really off-putting things that I was just like, I don't think I feel safe here. So I am working, starting today, so there's just 3 so far, on what I am trying to reframe my mind to think of as 3 for me instead of morning pages. The very last thing I want to share with you is something that I am just so glad I know about as a child of, as a teenager in the 90s. I don't know if you know this or not, but our beloved Alanis Morissette has released an album of meditative music. It's called The Storm Before the Calm, and it is so good. You know, because of like copyright stuff, I can't play any of it for you, but I listened to it the other night when I was just pilling around the kitchen. My husband listened to it yesterday, one day this week while he was at work, and was like, oh my gosh, it's great. So it also gets a thumbs up from a not necessarily Alanis Morissette fan. So, oh, the other thing that I did this month that I think is pretty fun, I quilted a little reading cloth. I don't know if you can see really. The back is a mess. I still need to trim it up and it doesn't make any sense. But I quilted a square reading cloth from the fabric that I had left from the wraps from my deck. And I am working on embroidering a wider one at this point that would meet the like the YouTube measurements, and also if I turned it long ways it would be the size for Instagram stories. I know for me I get really excited. I watch a lot of YouTube on my TV, and my TV is not that big and I'm not that close to it, so sometimes I can't really tell what channel I'm clicking on from a distance. But when I see Meg's background, Meg from Rose Honey Ritual, I get really excited. So I want to build like a background that you know is mine from a distance. So my plan is to play this weekend on embroidering that. So yeah, that's Chrissy out of June into July. Let me know what decks you're using if you have any questions about the decks that I'm working with this month. I hope that June treated you well. I hope that your first few days of July are fresh and new, and that there's some rest in your weekend. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon.